The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with alien voices. 12 different species sat around the crystal table, each one more advanced than the last. The Valtans looked like living diamonds, their bodies catching and reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Zephyrates moved as one mind in many bodies, speaking in perfect harmony. The Luminals floated as pure energy, their forms shifting like living stars. Ambassador Kethvar of the Veltan Empire stood up. His crystal body rang like a bell as he moved. "We are here for the Centennial Review," he announced. "Every 100 years we decide which new species can join our great confederation." The other aliens nodded. This was an old tradition. For thousands of years, the Galactic Confederation had been the most powerful force in the galaxy. Only the best species could join. Only those who had proven themselves worthy. A small data pad slid across the table. It stopped in front of Kethvar. He picked it up and his crystal face showed disgust. "Humans," he said the word like it tasted bad. From a small planet called Earth, the Zephyrite collective leader, speaking through 50 mouths at once, asked, "What have they achieved?" Kethvar read from the file. "They discovered faster than light travel only 50 years ago. Their technology is basic. They still use crude metal ships and chemical rockets." He paused. "They fight wars among themselves. They damage their own planet. They have no collective consciousness, no energy manipulation, no crystal computing." A luminal representative, glowing brighter with interest, asked, "What about their minds? Their spiritual development?" "Primitive," Kethvar replied. "They think as individuals. They argue constantly. They cannot agree on simple things like government or religion. They are chaos in physical form." The chamber filled with alien laughter. The idea of a species that could not agree on basic concepts seemed funny to them. Each of their species had solved such problems millions of years ago. The leader of the mechanical collective, a being made of living metal, spoke with a voice like grinding gears. "Perhaps they have unique combat abilities. Some species prove useful as warriors." Kethvar shook his head. "Their military is divided into hundreds of small groups. They fight with simple weapons. No plasma cannons, no reality manipulators, no dimensional shields. They shoot metal bullets at each other." He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They still use explosions to move their ships through space." On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the Global Communications Center. She had been waiting for 3 days. The message from the Galactic Confederation was supposed to arrive soon. Humanity had sent their application for contact 5 years ago. They had included everything they could think of: their history, their science, their art, their dreams of joining the greater galaxy. Sarah had dedicated her life to this moment. She was Earth's leading expert on alien biology. She had studied every piece of alien technology they had found. She had learned 17 different alien languages. She believed that when the aliens met humans, they would see their potential. The communication device beeped. Sarah's heart jumped. She pressed the accept button with shaking hands. The hologram that appeared was beautiful and terrible. Kethvar's crystal form sparkled in the light. When he spoke, his voice was cold and formal. "To the species known as humans on the planet called Earth," he began, "the Galactic Confederation has reviewed your application for contact and membership." Sarah held her breath. "After careful consideration by all 12 member species, we have reached a unanimous decision. Your species has been classified as developmentally irrelevant." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had prepared for rejection, but not this. "Not irrelevant." Kethvar continued reading from his official statement. "Your species lacks the basic requirements for galactic citizenship. You have not achieved collective consciousness. You have not mastered energy manipulation. You have not developed beyond primitive conflict resolution. Your technology is insufficient for meaningful contribution to galactic society." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. But she kept listening. "Effective immediately. All human attempts at contact will be ignored. Any further communication attempts will be considered acts of aggression against the Confederation. You are advised to focus on your internal development. Perhaps in several thousand years you may reach the minimum standards required for reconsideration." The hologram began to fade. Sarah reached out desperately. "Wait, please. We can learn. We can grow." But Kethvar was already gone. The last thing she heard was his final words. "The decision is permanent. Do not contact us again." Back on Nexus Prime, the vote was being finalized. Each species had cast their decision into the central crystal. The result appeared in letters of light above the table. Rejected, species insufficient. The Zephyrite collective leader asked, "Should we place monitoring stations around their system to track their development?" Kethavar waved a dismissive hand. "Unnecessary. They will likely destroy themselves within a few centuries. Most primitive species do. Their constant conflicts and resource abuse will finish them long before they become a threat or an asset." The luminal representative glowed dimmer, almost sadly. They showed some interesting artistic expressions in their application. Their music and visual arts had unique qualities. "Art is meaningless without the wisdom to create it properly," Kethavar replied. "Beauty without purpose is just chaos. They create like children, without understanding or discipline." The mechanical collective leader made a sound like grinding metal. "Their individual thinking is a disease. How can a species function when every member thinks different thoughts? It is inefficient. It is madness." Around the table, the other aliens agreed. Each of their species had evolved beyond individual thought. The Velthans shared information through crystal networks. The Zephyrites were literally one mind in many bodies. The luminals existed as connected energy. Even the species that kept some individual identity had rigid social structures that prevented chaos. Humans were different. Each human thought their own thoughts. They disagreed constantly. They seemed to enjoy arguing. To the advanced aliens, this looked like a species that had failed to evolve properly. The vote was recorded in the Confederation archives. Earth's location was marked as irrelevant system, no contact authorized. The file was buried deep in the archives, forgotten almost immediately. On Earth, Sarah Chen sat alone in the communications center. The screen was dark. The room was silent. She had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. She had believed that when the galaxy met humanity, they would see their potential for growth, their creativity, their determination. Instead, they had seen chaos and called it failure. They had seen diversity and called it weakness. They had seen individual thinking and called it primitive. Sarah wiped her eyes and stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Millions of humans went about their lives, unaware that their entire species had just been declared worthless by the galaxy. But Sarah made a decision that night. If the galaxy would not teach them, humanity would teach itself. If they were not good enough as they were, they would become better, not by becoming like the aliens, but by becoming the best version of themselves. She picked up her communication device and sent a message to every government, every university, every research station on Earth. The message was simple. "We have been rejected. Now we begin." The galaxy had made its judgment. Humans were irrelevant, but Sarah Chen had a feeling the galaxy might be wrong about that. Time would tell. 50 years had passed since the rejection. Earth looked very different now. The blue planet still turned in space, but humanity had changed. Where once there had been hundreds of separate nations, now there was one united government. The old conflicts that the aliens had mocked were gone, replaced by a single purpose: survival and growth. Dr. Maria Chen stood in the same communication center where her mother had received the terrible news decades ago. Maria was older now, with gray streaks in her black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. She led the Ghost Protocol, a secret program that most humans did not even know existed. "Show me the latest report," she said to her assistant, James. James activated the holographic display. Images of alien ships appeared in the air between them. "We tracked 17 different Confederation vessels this month," he said. "All avoiding our solar system, just like always." Maria nodded. The aliens had kept their word. They ignored humanity completely. No contact, no communication, no acknowledgement that humans even existed. But that did not stop humans from watching them. The Ghost Protocol had started small. A few captured pieces of alien technology from old crash sites. Some scientists working in secret. Slowly, carefully, they had learned, not by asking the aliens for help, but by studying everything the aliens left behind. "What about the new hybrid engines?" Maria asked. James smiled. "Test flight was successful. We combined Veilthan crystal technology with Zephyrite biocomputing and our own fusion systems. The aliens would probably say it should not work. But it does work," Maria said. This was humanity's strength. The aliens were experts at one type of technology each. Velthans used crystals for everything. Zephyrits grew their technology like living things. Luminals manipulated pure energy. Each species was perfect at their specialty, but they never mixed technologies. Humans mixed everything. They took crystal computing and added biological processors. They combined energy manipulation with mechanical systems. The aliens thought this was chaos. Humans called it innovation. A new alarm sounded in the communication center. Maria and James looked at each other with worry. That alarm meant only one thing. Something was happening in alien space. The main screen activated. A Confederation emergency broadcast was playing. Kethvar appeared on screen, but he looked different. His crystal body was cracked. His light was dim. Fear showed in his alien features. To all Confederation worlds, he announced, we are under attack by an unknown force. Initial contact occurred at the galactic edge. The enemy appears to be mechanical in nature. All outer colonies are ordered to evacuate immediately. Maria leaned forward. In 50 years of watching, she had never seen the Confederation show fear. The broadcast continued. Images appeared of massive black ships that looked like geometric nightmares. They moved through space in perfect formations, consuming everything in their path. Stars went dark. Planets disappeared. Entire solar systems vanished into the darkness. The enemy designation is Devourers, Kethvar continued. They appear to consume matter and energy for unknown purposes. Standard Confederation defenses have proven insufficient. Maria noticed he did not say the defenses had failed. He said they were insufficient. Even in crisis, the aliens could not admit they might be wrong about something. More images appeared. Velthan crystal ships shattering like glass under some kind of quantum attack. Zephyrid bioships writhing in pain as their living systems were corrupted and turned against them. Luminal energy beings simply absorbed into the black hull of Devourer ships. Estimated time until the enemy reaches inner Confederation space. 6 months, Kethvar announced. All species are ordered to prepare defenses according to Confederation Standard Protocol 7. The broadcast ended. Maria and James sat in silence for a long moment. They are in trouble, James said finally. Maria nodded. Their greatest strength is becoming their greatest weakness. Each species is so specialized that they cannot adapt when their specialty fails. She walked to the window and looked out at Earth's space stations. Human ships moved between them, carrying supplies and people. The ships looked strange compared to alien vessels. Where alien ships were perfect examples of their species' technology, human ships were mixtures of everything they had learned. What do we do? James asked. Maria was quiet for a long time. She thought about her mother, who had died still believing that humanity could prove itself to the galaxy. She thought about the 50 years of isolation, of being called irrelevant and ignored. We prepare, she finally said. If these Devourers are as dangerous as they look, they will not stop at Confederation space. Eventually they will come here. Should we contact the Confederation? Offer to help? Maria laughed, but there was no humor in it. They declared us irrelevant, remember? They will not accept help from primitive humans. Their pride will not allow it. Over the following weeks, more reports came from Confederation space. The Devourers moved faster than anyone expected. Their technology seemed designed to counter each alien species perfectly. When the Velthans tried to use their crystal networks to coordinate defense, the Devourers sent quantum viruses that turned the crystals into weapons against their own creators. When the Zephyrites tried to use their collective consciousness to outthink the enemy, the Devourers somehow infiltrated their shared minds and drove them insane. When the Luminals tried to use pure energy attacks, the Devourers simply absorbed the energy and became stronger. Each species' greatest achievement became their fatal flaw. But something strange was happening in human space. Small colonies that humans had built in systems the Confederation considered worthless were reporting contact with Devourer scout ships, and unlike the alien encounters, these contacts ended differently. Maria read the report from New Geneva Colony with growing excitement. They sent 3 scout ships, the colony commander had written. Our defense grid activated automatically. We used Protocol 17, adaptive response with mixed technology countermeasures. Enemy ships showed confusion at our chaotic defense patterns. They withdrew after sustaining damage. Protocol 17 was a human invention. Instead of using one type of technology like the aliens did, it randomly switched between different systems. Crystal shields one moment, bioarmor the next, then energy barriers, then simple metal plating. The constant change confused enemy targeting systems. They are not prepared for chaos, Maria said to herself. They are designed to fight perfect, predictable enemies. More reports came in. Human colonies were not just surviving devourer attacks, they were winning. Their mixed technologies and unpredictable tactics were working where alien perfection had failed. Maria made a decision that would change everything. She activated the Deep Space Communication Array and sent a message toward Confederation space, not to ask for help, not to beg for recognition, but to offer assistance. The message was simple and professional. Confederation Command, this is Earth Defense Force. We have tactical data regarding the Devourer threat. We have successful defensive strategies to share, awaiting your response. She knew the aliens would probably ignore the message. They had ignored humanity for 50 years. But the Devourers were coming, and soon the galaxy would learn that sometimes chaos was exactly what was needed. In Confederation space, the war continued to go badly. World after world fell to the advancing Devourers. The aliens' perfect technologies and rigid tactics were no match for an enemy that seemed designed to exploit their strengths. But in human space, small colonies continued to fight and win. Their chaotic, imperfect, constantly changing defenses confused and frustrated the mechanical invaders. The galaxy was about to learn that irrelevant species could be the most relevant of all. The Devourer invasion was accelerating beyond anyone's worst fears. What had started as isolated attacks on the galactic edge had become a full-scale assault on Confederation space. Each day brought news of another fallen world, another broken defense line, another failed attempt to stop the mechanical nightmare. High Chancellor Kethvar stood in the Confederation's war room on Nexus Prime. The crystal walls around him displayed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Devourer-controlled systems. There were too many red dots now, spreading like a disease toward the galactic core. "Report," he commanded, his voice brittle with exhaustion. Admiral Zythara of the Luminal Collective materialized beside him, her energy form flickering with distress. "The outer spiral is completely lost. 17 worlds in the past week alone. The Velthan home system." She paused, unable to continue. "What about the Velthan home system?" Kethvar demanded. "Gone," Admiral Zythara whispered. The entire crystal network that connected their civilization was turned into a weapon against them. The Devourers somehow reversed the quantum frequencies. Every crystal on every world shattered simultaneously. Billions died in seconds. Kethvar felt something crack inside his own crystal structure. The Velthans were the oldest members of the Confederation. Their civilization had lasted for millions of years. The idea that they could be destroyed so completely seemed impossible. "What about the Zephyrite resistance on Hive 7? He asked. "The collective mind has been compromised," Admiral Zythara replied. "The Devourers found a way to inject chaos into their shared consciousness. The entire population is fighting itself. Their greatest strength, their unity, has become madness." Across the galaxy, the same pattern repeated everywhere. The mechanical collective's perfectly logical systems were infected with paradox viruses that made them shut down in confusion. The plasma-wielding thermals found their own fire turned against them. Every species was being destroyed by their own greatest achievement. Dr. Maria Chen, now 70 years old, watched the Confederation broadcast from Earth. Her son, Admiral Marcus Chen, stood beside her in the command center. He was 45, a military officer who had grown up hearing stories of the galaxy that had rejected his people. "It is getting worse," Marcus said, watching refugee ships flee from system after system. "At this rate, they will reach inner Confederation space within weeks." Maria nodded grimly. "And then they will come here." The communication board lit up with an incoming message. Both Chens turned to look as a familiar figure appeared on screen. High Chancellor Kethvar. But this was not the proud, dismissive alien who had rejected humanity 50 years ago. This Kethvar looked broken. His crystal body was cracked in dozens of places. His light was dim and flickering. To any species receiving this transmission," he began, his voice shaking, "the Galactic Confederation formally requests assistance from any civilization capable of providing aid against the Devourer threat." Maria and Marcus looked at each other in surprise. The proud Confederation was asking for help. Kethvar continued. "Standard defensive protocols have proven inadequate. Enemy forces adapt too quickly to conventional tactics. We require new approaches, alternative strategies. We are prepared to offer full galactic citizenship and technology sharing to any species that can provide effective assistance. The transmission ended. The command center was quiet for a long moment. They are desperate, Marcus said finally. Desperate enough to ask primitive, irrelevant humans for help, Maria replied. There was no bitterness in her voice, only sadness. The question is, do we help them? Before Marcus could answer, another alarm sounded. This one was different. The deep space warning system. Lieutenant Torres rushed to the scanner station. Massive energy signatures approaching Sol system, she announced. Configuration matches Devourer scout patterns. Maria felt her heart sink. They were out of time. How many ships? Marcus asked, moving into command mode. 3 large vessels, 12 smaller ones, Torres replied. They will reach the outer planets in 6 hours. Marcus activated the fleet communication system. All human ships, this is Admiral Chen. Condition red. Devourer forces approaching home system. Activate Protocol 19. Full chaos defense. Across human space, ships began moving. They were not beautiful ships like the aliens built. Human vessels looked like they had been built by someone who could not decide what they wanted. Parts of Velthan crystal technology mixed with Zephyrite biosystems. Energy weapons combined with old-fashioned projectile cannons. Armor that switched between different materials every few seconds. To alien eyes, human ships looked insane. Nothing matched. Nothing followed proper design principles. They should not work, but they did work. And they worked in ways that no alien could predict. The first Devourer scout ship entered the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It immediately began scanning for defensive positions, trying to analyze human technology to find the most efficient way to counter it. The scan results confused its mechanical brain. Human ships were using 7 different types of shields simultaneously. Their weapons switched between energy beams, projectile cannons, plasma bursts, and something that looked like controlled nuclear explosions. Their movement patterns made no sense. They flew in formations that changed every few minutes, following no logical tactical doctrine. The Devourer ship tried to adapt its defenses to counter human weapons, but every time it adjusted, the humans switched to something completely different. When it prepared for energy weapons, the humans used projectiles. When it armored against physical impacts, the humans used plasma. When it tried to predict their movement, they changed direction for no apparent reason. Captain Lisa Park commanded the human destroyer, Chaos Theory. She watched the Devourer ship struggling to adapt to her constantly changing tactics. Fire everything, she ordered. All weapons, all at once. The destroyer unleashed a barrage that would have horrified any alien military expert. Energy beams, plasma bolts, nuclear missiles, and simple metal railgun rounds all fired at the same target simultaneously. No proper military force would waste so much ammunition at once. It was inefficient, chaotic, wasteful. It was also devastatingly effective. The Devourer ship, trying to adapt to 7 different types of attack at once, suffered a cascade failure in its adaptive systems. Its perfect mechanical brain simply could not handle that much chaos at the same time. The alien ship exploded in a burst of silver fire. Similar battles were happening throughout the solar system. Human defenders were not fighting like any military force the Devourers had ever encountered. They were unpredictable, chaotic, wasteful, and completely impossible to counter. Within 4 hours, all 15 Devourer ships were destroyed. Not a single human vessel was lost. On Nexus Prime, Confederation sensors detected the impossible energy signatures coming from Sol system. The readings showed successful defensive actions against Devourer forces, energy patterns that should not exist, tactical approaches that made no sense. Kethvar stared at the data in disbelief. "Confirm these readings," he ordered. "Confirmed, Chancellor," his aide replied. "The human system has successfully repelled a Devourer attack. 0 alien ships escaped." For the first time in months, Kethvar felt something that might have been hope. The irrelevant species, the Chaos Makers, the primitives who could not even agree among themselves, had done what the greatest military minds in the galaxy could not do. They had won. A new transmission arrived from Earth. Admiral Marcus Chen appeared on screen, looking calm and professional. "Hi, Chancellor Kethvar," he said. "We received your request for assistance. We have tactical data and strategic recommendations to share with Confederation forces. We are prepared to coordinate joint operations against the Devourer threat." Kethvar looked at the human admiral. 50 years ago, he had dismissed the species as irrelevant chaos. Now they might be the galaxy's only hope. Admiral Chen, he replied, his voice humble for the first time in centuries. We accept your offer of assistance. The meeting took place in what had once been the Confederation's proudest military shipyard. Orbital Station Harmony had been a symbol of galactic cooperation, where ships from all 12 species were built together in perfect coordination. Now it was a broken shell, half destroyed by devourer attacks, held together by emergency shields and desperate repairs. High Chancellor Kethvar waited in the damaged command center. His crystal body was dimmer than ever, cracked in so many places that he looked like he might shatter at any moment. Around him stood the surviving leaders of the Confederation. Admiral Zithara of the Luminals, her energy form barely stable. Commander Hesatak of the remaining Zephyrite, his collective consciousness reduced to just a few hundred minds. And others, all showing the marks of a war they were losing. The main doors opened with a grinding sound. The automatic systems had been damaged, so they had to be pushed open manually. Admiral Marcus Chen entered, followed by a small group of human officers. Kethvar was shocked by how ordinary they looked. After 50 years of imagining humans as chaos monsters or primitive barbarians, these people were just normal. They wore simple military uniforms, carried basic equipment, and moved with quiet confidence. Admiral Chen was a middle-aged human with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked around the damaged station with professional interest, not the awe that most species showed when first seeing Confederation technology. "High Chancellor," Marcus said, offering a formal salute. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Kethvar struggled with the words he had to say. His species had spent 50 years calling humans irrelevant. Admitting they needed help from primitives went against everything he believed about galactic civilization. "Admiral Chen," he finally managed, "we require your assistance. Our conventional forces have proven insufficient against the Devourer threat." Marcus nodded calmly. "We know. We have been monitoring Confederation communications for some time. The question is, are you ready to listen to unconventional strategies?" The word unconventional made several alien leaders shift uncomfortably. The Confederation had succeeded for millions of years by following established protocols, proven tactics, and logical approaches. Unconventional meant chaos. Chaos meant failure. "What do you propose?" Admiral Zithara asked, her energy form flickering with uncertainty. Marcus activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing human ship formations, but they looked wrong to alien eyes. Ships scattered randomly across space, no apparent organization, constant movement with no clear pattern. "Your forces fight like this," Marcus said, showing a Confederation battle formation. Perfect geometric patterns, each ship in its assigned position. Movements coordinated through central command. Very efficient. Very logical. Very predictable, the aliens nodded. This was proper military doctrine. "The Devourers adapt to patterns," Marcus continued. "They analyze your formations, predict your movements, counter your strategies. Your strength becomes your weakness because you are too consistent." He changed the display to show human tactics. "We fight like this. No fixed formations, constant changes. Ships acting independently while still working together. Every captain makes their own decisions based on immediate conditions." Commander Hesatak of the Zephyrite spoke up, his collective voice confused. "How do you coordinate without central command?" "How do you avoid chaos?" Marcus smiled. "We do not avoid chaos. We use chaos. When every ship is doing something different, the enemy cannot predict what comes next. They try to adapt to our patterns, but our patterns change faster than they can adjust." Kethvar's crystal structure rang with distress. "This is madness. How can a fleet function without proper coordination?" "The same way humans have always functioned," Marcus replied. "Through individual initiative, creative problem-solving, and adaptation to changing circumstances. Your species evolved beyond individual thinking millions of years ago. That evolution made you efficient, but it also made you predictable." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, one of Marcus's officers, stepped forward. "May I demonstrate something?" she asked. Without waiting for permission, she pulled out a simple puzzle cube and tossed it to Admiral Zithara. "Please solve this," she said. The luminal admiral examined the cube with her energy senses. Within seconds, she had analyzed its structure completely. Her energy form reshaped itself into mathematical configurations, calculating the optimal solution. In 30 seconds, the cube was solved perfectly. Impressive, Sarah said. Then she tossed an identical cube to another human officer. Johnson, solve this. Officer Johnson caught the cube and immediately began turning it randomly. No analysis, no mathematical calculations, just random movements. Sometimes he made progress, sometimes he made it worse. He tried different approaches, abandoned them, tried again. It took him 3 minutes to solve it. Your approach was faster and more efficient, Sarah told Admiral Zythera. But what happens when someone changes the rules? She produced a third cube, but this one was different. Some of the colored squares could change color. Some sections could split apart unexpectedly. The puzzle changed its own rules while being solved. Admiral Zythera tried to analyze this cube but quickly became confused. Every time she calculated a solution, the cube changed. Her perfect logical approach could not handle a problem that refused to follow fixed rules. Officer Johnson took the modified cube and began working on it the same way he had worked on the first one. Random attempts, constant adaptation, trying new approaches when old ones failed. It took him longer, but eventually he solved it too. The Devourers are like that second cube, Marcus explained. They change the rules. Your logical, efficient approaches cannot handle an enemy that adapts faster than you can plan. The alien leaders were quiet for a long moment. Everything humans were suggesting went against millions of years of civilized development. You are asking us to abandon everything that makes us advanced, Kethvar said finally. No, Marcus replied. We are asking you to work with us. You do not have to become like humans. But you need to fight alongside us, and that means accepting that sometimes chaos is more effective than order. Admiral Zythera's energy form flickered thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing? Marcus changed the holographic display again. Now it showed a combined fleet. Sleek, beautiful alien ships flying alongside crude patchwork human vessels. Joint operations, he said. Your ships provide the firepower and technology. Our ships provide the unpredictability and adaptive tactics. When the Devourers try to analyze our combined fleet, they will not be able to understand it because half of it will not make sense to their logical programming. You want us to deliberately introduce chaos into our formations? Commander Hestak asked, his collective mind struggling with the concept. We want you to trust us to handle the chaos while you focus on what you do best, Marcus replied. You have better shields, better weapons, better engines. We have better tactics for confusing an adaptive enemy. Together we might actually win this war. Kethavar looked around at his fellow leaders. They were all thinking the same thing. This was madness. Everything they had believed about proper military organization, everything they had learned about civilization and advancement, told them that chaos was the enemy of success. But they were losing the war. Their perfect, logical, efficient methods were failing against an enemy that turned their strengths into weaknesses. What do you need from us? Kethavar asked quietly. Permission to operate in Confederation space, Marcus replied. Access to your communication network so we can coordinate with your forces. And most importantly, trust that we know what we are doing even when it looks like we do not. There was another long silence. Finally, Admiral Zythera spoke. In my species' history, we have never deliberately introduced chaos into our operations. It goes against everything we believe about proper civilization. She paused, her energy form pulsing with decision. But we are dying. Our civilization is ending. If chaos can save us, then perhaps we have been wrong about chaos. Kethvar felt something shift inside his crystal structure. For 50 years he had believed that humans were irrelevant because they embraced disorder. Now he was beginning to understand that their disorder might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Very well, he said. Admiral Chen, the Confederation formally requests joint operations with human forces. You have full authorization to coordinate with our remaining fleets. Marcus saluted again. Thank you, High Chancellor. We will not let you down. As the humans left the station, Kethavar stood looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were still advancing, still consuming everything in their path. But for the first time in months, he felt something that might have been hope. The galaxy's most irrelevant species might just save them all. The final battle began at the galactic core, where the Devourers had built something that chilled the blood of every living being in the galaxy. The massive structure stretched across an entire star system, a geometric nightmare of black metal and pulsing energy. It was a processing station, designed to convert all matter and energy in the galaxy into something the Devourers could use. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the beautiful Chaos. Around him, displays showed the largest fleet ever assembled. Thousands of ships from both human and Confederation forces. But it was a strange sight that would have made military historians weep. The Confederation ships flew in perfect, logical formations. Their crystal hulls gleamed with mathematical precision. Their energy weapons charged in coordinated patterns. Every movement was calculated, every position optimized for maximum efficiency. Mixed among them were human ships that looked like they had been built by madmen. Hulls that combined stolen alien technology in ways that should not work. Weapons that fired different types of ammunition from the same barrel. Engines that seemed to violate basic physics. Ship formations that changed every few minutes for no apparent reason. All human ships, this is Admiral Chen. Marcus spoke into his communication system. Remember, stay unpredictable. Change tactics every 5 minutes. If something is working, stop doing it and try something else. Confusion is our greatest weapon. On the Confederation command ship, High Chancellor Kethavar watched the human ships with growing anxiety. They are completely disorganized, he said to Admiral Zithara. How can they possibly coordinate an attack? Perhaps that is the point, Admiral Zithara replied. Her energy form had grown stronger over the past weeks of working with humans. If we cannot understand their tactics, neither can the Devourers. The enemy responded to the approaching fleet with typical mechanical efficiency. Thousands of Devourer ships emerged from the processing station in perfect geometric patterns. Their black hulls reflected no light. Their weapons charged with mathematical precision. They moved like a single organism, every ship perfectly coordinated with every other. Marcus watched the enemy formation and smiled grimly. Classic mistake, he muttered. They are still thinking like a machine. Johnson signaled the fleet. Operation Beautiful Madness is go. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries, though none of them would ever fully understand it. The human ships broke formation and scattered in all directions. Some flew straight at the enemy. Others veered off at random angles. A few began flying in circles for no apparent reason. Several started firing their weapons before they were even in range. The Confederation forces, following their human allies' lead, abandoned their perfect formations and began what they could only describe as controlled chaos. Felton crystal ships suddenly changed direction mid-flight. Sephiroth bioships began moving in patterns that hurt their collective consciousness to think about. Luminal energy beings started randomly shifting between different energy states. The Devourer fleet hesitated. For the first time in their invasion of the galaxy, they encountered something their mechanical minds could not process. An enemy that made no sense. The Devourers tried to adapt. They analyzed human movement patterns, but the humans changed patterns faster than the analysis could complete. They attempted to predict Confederation tactics, but the aliens were doing things that violated their own military doctrine. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the destroyer Chaos Theory, was leading a charge against a Devourer heavy cruiser. Halfway through her attack run, she suddenly ordered her ship to stop and begin flying backward while still shooting forward. Captain, this makes no tactical sense, her weapons officer protested. Exactly, Lisa replied. The enemy is trying to predict where we will be in 10 seconds so they can target us. But if we are doing something that makes no sense, they cannot predict it. Her backward-flying destroyer somehow managed to avoid 3 different Devourer targeting systems while landing direct hits on the enemy ship's weak points. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships doing impossible things, Confederation forces abandoning millions of years of military wisdom to embrace chaos, and everywhere Devourer ships struggling to adapt to an enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern. But the Devourers had one advantage: numbers. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more emerged from the processing station. The Allied fleet was slowly being overwhelmed despite their tactical advantages. Admiral Marcus Chen realized they needed a new approach. All ships, this is Chen. We are going to do something incredibly stupid. Follow my lead. He ordered his flagship to fly directly into the heart of the Devourer formation, straight toward the processing station. Every military instinct screamed that this was suicide. A single ship could not assault a fortress defended by thousands of enemies, but every other ship in the Allied fleet followed him. The sight was magnificent and terrifying. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all flying in a massive chaotic swarm toward certain death. No formation, no plan, No coordination except the shared understanding that sometimes the only way forward was through. The Devourers' mechanical minds simply could not process what they were seeing. An entire fleet committing suicide made no logical sense. They hesitated, trying to calculate the hidden strategy behind such an obviously foolish move. There was no hidden strategy. It was just thousands of beings deciding that if they were going to die, they would die fighting. That hesitation cost the Devourers everything. While their analytical systems struggled to understand the illogical assault, the Allied fleet crashed into their defenses like a wave of controlled chaos. Human ships fired everything they had while doing barrel rolls through enemy formations. Confederation vessels abandoned all defensive protocols to focus entirely on attack. The beautiful logical order of the Devourer fleet crumbled under the assault of an enemy that refused to behave logically. Marcus Chen's flagship reached the processing station first. The massive structure loomed before them like a metallic planet, its surface crawling with defensive systems. "All power to forward guns," Marcus ordered. "Ram it." "Sir?" his navigation officer asked in disbelief. "You heard me. Ram the station?" Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. The beautiful chaos accelerated toward the station's power core, its hull burning from enemy fire, its systems failing one by one. Behind it, hundreds of other ships followed, each captain making the same impossible decision. The collision should have been meaningless. Single ships, even large ones, could not destroy a structure the size of a space station. But the processing station had been designed to handle logical, predictable attacks. It had not been designed to handle hundreds of ships simultaneously ramming into critical systems while firing every weapon they possessed. The station's power core destabilized. Chain reactions spread through its geometric structure. Secondary explosions triggered tertiary failures. The mechanical perfection that had made it so efficient now made it vulnerable as each system failure cascaded into the next. The processing station died in a burst of light that could be seen across the galaxy. With their central command destroyed, the Devourer fleet lost coordination. Individual ships continued fighting, but they were no longer a unified force. The Allied fleet, broken and battered but still chaotically functional, hunted down the remaining enemies one by one. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the galaxy fell silent. Admiral Marcus Chen, badly injured but alive, found himself in the medical bay of a Confederation rescue ship. High Chancellor Cathvar stood beside his bed, and for the first time in 50 years the alien leader looked truly humbled. "Admiral Chen," Cathvar said quietly, "the Confederation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." Marcus shook his head weakly. "We did not do this for the Confederation. We did it because it needed doing. 50 years ago we declared your species irrelevant," Cathvar continued. "We said you had nothing to offer galactic civilization. We measured you by our standards and found you wanting." He paused, his crystal structure dimming with shame. "We failed to understand that our standards were insufficient. You saw our chaos and called it primitive. You saw our adaptability and called it unfocused. You saw our diversity and called it weakness." Marcus smiled despite his injuries. "You saw our chaos and called it primitive. You saw our adaptability and called it unfocused. You saw our diversity and called it weakness. But chaos taught us to survive anything. Adaptability taught us to solve any problem. And our diversity—" He gestured weakly toward the window, where human and alien ships worked together to rescue survivors. "Our diversity taught us that there is always another way." 3 months later, the galaxy gathered for a new beginning. The Galactic Confederation was dissolved, replaced by the Galactic Alliance. The new charter, written in precise Vialthon crystal script but guided by human principles, contained a simple truth that would guide the galaxy for millennia to come. No species shall be deemed irrelevant, for relevance is not measured by current achievement, but by infinite potential. Humanity took its place not as subjects of a great galactic empire, but as teachers of a galaxy that had forgotten how to learn. They showed their new allies that strength came not from perfection,